Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're dissecting a 140-year-old marvel of engineering that you probably use every single day. The incandescent light bulb literally changed the course of human history, right? It completely altered how we live and work. Yet it's something we totally take for granted now. But honestly, the science hiding just behind that incredibly thin layer of glass is nothing short of fascinating. Let's dive in.
So, how exactly does a simple wire capture the power of the sun? It's a great question, and to answer it, we really have to look past the glass and understand the violent microscopic physics happening every single time we flip a switch. We're talking extreme temperatures, inert gases, and complex chemical cycles, all happening continuously right above your head.
Section 1. The principle of incandescence. Let's look at the core principle here.
When we force electricity through a highly resistant wire, that immense friction creates an intense heat. Think of it like, vigorously rubbing your hands together to get warm on a freezing winter day, except this is happening at the atomic level with electrons. This process, Joule heating, gets the material so incredibly hot that it actually bursts into visible light. It's literally light produced entirely by extreme heat.
Pretty wild, right?
Section 2. The tungsten filament. This is the beating heart of the bulb.
Now, to successfully achieve incandescence, the modern tungsten filament has to endure a staggering internal temperature of around 4,500 degrees Fahrenheit. That's about 3,300 Kelvin. Tungsten is specifically chosen for this brutal job because it boasts the highest melting point of any element on the periodic table. That's what allows it to glow so brightly without immediately liquefying into a puddle of molten metal.
But at these extreme temperatures, the microscopic reality of what happens to that metal is just wow. The filament experiences a phenomenon called grain boundary sliding. Basically, under the relentless stress of its own weight and that continuous intense heat, the microscopic grains of the tungsten literally start to rotate and shift out of place. This structural failure causes the wire to sag unevenly, which creates even more localized stress, until eventually it snaps. And that exact moment is why your light bulb finally burns out.
Section 3. The invisible gas shield. The bulb's invisible armor.
Early on, bulbs actually used a pure vacuum to keep oxygen out. Now, that provided excellent thermal insulation, but it allowed the tungsten to evaporate way too rapidly, which blackened the inside of the glass. Eventually, modern engineering figured out that filling the bulb with an inert gas slows down that evaporation significantly. The trade-off, though? Adding gas introduces convective heat loss, effectively cooling the filament. It's a lot like a cold winter wind constantly pulling heat away from your bare skin. It means the bulb actually has to work much harder to maintain that extreme temperature.
So, looking at the molecular weights of our gas options, heavier inert gases, like krypton and xenon, are mathematically ideal. Their low thermal conductivity keeps the filament hotter, meaning you waste far less energy fighting that convective cooling effect. The problem is, xenon and krypton are ridiculously expensive to produce at scale, so because it's highly cost-effective, argon, usually mixed with just a little bit of nitrogen to prevent electrical arcing, became the standard industry choice.
But to evolve this chemical armor even further, engineers came up with the tungsten halogen bulb. By adding just a tiny, precise trace amount of halogen gas, like iodine, right inside the bulb, they trigger something called the halogen cycle. It's this continuous chemical reaction that literally scrubs the evaporating tungsten right off the glass envelope and recycles it directly back onto the filament as it burns. It keeps the glass perfectly clear and remarkably extends the life of the bulb. It's a brilliant piece of engineering.
Section 4. The heat problem. Let's talk about the fatal flaw.
Fundamentally, an incandescent bulb is actually just a tiny space heater that happens to produce a small byproduct of light. I mean, because of the sheer physics required to make tungsten glow, it wastes up to 95% of its electrical power as completely invisible infrared heat. Think about that for a second. Only about 5% of the energy you're paying for on your electric bill is actually illuminating your room.
The real crux of the issue is luminous efficacy. When you compare this older tech to modern lighting, a standard incandescent bulb yields only about 16 lumens of light for every single watt it consumes. On the flip side, modern LEDs, which produce light through targeted luminescence instead of raw thermal heat, can easily pump out around 100 lumens per watt. It's just a staggering, monumental difference in efficiency.
Section 5. Phasing out the bulb. A look at a brighter future.
According to the Department of Energy, this transition is actually often misunderstood by the public. This phase-out is really a direct evolution of the Bipartisan Energy Independence and Security Act of 27. It's not some sudden sweeping ban on all bulb shapes and sizes. Rather, it just legally mandates higher minimum efficiency standards that will take full effect by 2028. And actually, specialized incandescent bulbs, like those tough ones that can survive the heat inside your oven, are completely exempt right now. But for general home lighting, LEDs are expected to seamlessly take over and represent 98% of the market very, very soon.
And beyond the massive environmental savings, the economics here just make a lot of sense for the consumer's wallet. While modern LEDs do have a slightly higher upfront cost, maybe $5 to $6 compared to the $3 or $4 you'd spend on a basic incandescent, their drastically lower energy consumption means they pay for themselves in less than a year on your utility bills. Plus, they last years, sometimes even decades longer than those traditional glass and wire bulbs.
All of this leaves us with a really fascinating thought about the hidden nature of our modern infrastructure. We spent over a century meticulously perfecting the science of a glowing, burning wire trapped inside a glass cage. Now, as we confidently transition to cooler, wildly more efficient technologies, I highly encourage you to look around your own home today. The science of energy is still evolving right in front of us. So what other inefficient marvels of the 19th century are hiding in plain sight, just waiting for their LED moment? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep asking questions.